So what's the first story that you remember writing?
The first story that I remember writing was actually a fan fiction. It was about Sonic the Hedgehog. I was like 8 or 9 or something. And it was really brutal. I like made a tree fall on him and he couldn't run, and he was like, he had a broken leg and had to like deal with his leg. Anyway, it was a really emo, like angsty story about Sonic.
It's so funny. Do you remember how old you were when you wrote that?
I think I was like 8 or 9 or something. Yeah.
It's adorable.
It's very dark.
If you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to write something bad. I feel like when I first started, I would write these like 50-page stories and just never finish anything because it wouldn't turn out the way that it looked in my head. So so I would keep like switching stories and I never finished anything, and eventually I realized that you just have to finish it. Nobody writes a good first draft. Like, I still don't write good first drafts, you know, and it's okay. And I feel like I would have progressed faster if I had known that when I was younger. So that's what I would tell myself.
That's really great. Do you have any writing rituals?
I used to have more. Now I kind of have, like, I think just out of the necessity of the job, I kind of adapt to wherever I need to be for writing. In general, though, I do like to write in the mornings, like usually really early in the morning, so 6 or 7 a.m. I like to get it done early. I have to listen to music when I'm writing, but I can't listen to lyrics. So lots of soundtracks that don't distract me, or like rain sounds or something like that. And I think that's pretty much it, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is the hardest part of starting a new project or a new book?
Getting into the right voice for my character. It's kind of like meeting someone new. You know, I don't know everything about this person, and it takes me a couple of drafts before I really get the hang of who I'm speaking through. All of them have had really different voices. So Day and June are really different from Adelina, who's really different from Amika. So, so yeah, it always takes a bit of finagling to get used to.
So what is the biggest cut you've made from a book?
Well, the Young Elites, I had to completely redo the book.
It's hard.
I remember when I first pitched it, it wasn't about Adelina. It was from the point of view of somebody else, and it wasn't ever from a villain's perspective. So it was just like a straight fantasy. I gave it to my agent after I'd written like 100 pages or so, which is a huge chunk, and she didn't like it. She was like, I feel like Adelina's the only interesting character in this story. And then she kind of said, you know, maybe you should make her the main character. And that was the moment when I realized, like, oh, I actually want to tell a villain story with this book. But it meant that I had to throw away everything that I had done up to that point, and that was very, very painful.
Wow, definitely. Yeah. So how did you start after that? Like, how did you take the steps to rewrite this whole book?
Honestly, figuring out that I had to do it was the hardest part, and knowing that all of this stuff that I had done was basically for naught, and I had to toss it. But I mean, the thing is, none of it's ever really wasted, you know, it's just like your brain's way of figuring stuff out as you're going. Once I started writing it from Adelina's point of view, everything just clicked into place, and the story started flowing in a way that it wasn't when I first started writing it. So, so it did get easier. It was just kind of getting past the mental hurdle of like, oh, I have to redo everything. Once I get past that, then the rest of it fell into place pretty naturally.
Awesome. How do you choose the names of your characters?
It's a combination of stuff. Sometimes they mean things, like Day and June had names that meant something. Like Day, I wanted to give him a street name that symbolized his outlook on life, so his motto of walking in the light and, you know, choosing the right thing. So Day seemed to fit him really well. June was named after the month of June because she's kind of like a Gemini to me. You know, she has a very like Gemini personality. And then sometimes I just pick names because they sound nice. You know, I think Adelina's name sounded really nice. I love looking up like baby name websites for Italian names for the Young Elite series. So Adelina's name actually means noble, which is really ironic, I think. And Enzo, the prince in the story, his name actually means to rule. So it kind of fit for him as well. And Amika, I just wanted to make a name that sounded nice to me and then that was easy to pronounce and that was just pretty. So that's how I came up with hers.
Awesome. Of all the characters you have created, do you have a favorite, and is it even possible to choose?
Oh my god.
Hardest question.
Yeah, they're all like my kids, I guess. I don't have any kids yet, but I mean, Amika is probably the one that I identify with the most right now. She is very much like me and like my mom, so so there's a lot of both of us in her characteristic, and I feel pretty attached to her. But you know, having said that, like all of my main characters have had some meaning to me in some way. So when I was writing Legend, Day's been in my head since I was like 15. Like he was this character that's just always been sitting there. And June, I came to really identify with her, and Adelina, you know, is kind of like my special one because she was so dark, and I felt for her, but I also did terrible things to her at the same time. So I don't know, it's hard to choose just one. Yeah.
What do you think makes a good story?
I think that people will forgive anything flawed in a story if they like your main character. So I think character for me is the most important part of the story, and if you can write a compelling character, I will forgive, you know, plot inconsistencies and pacing issues and anything else, like world building problems. Like, I will forgive anything if I love the character and I'm rooting for them and I'm afraid for them. Like that, to me, more than anything else in story, is what counts.
Do you have any special hidden or uncommon talents?
I sometimes do things with both hands,
Oh,
so
wow.
I guess that's a talent. I don't know.
Ambidextrous?
I guess, like, I think what happened was when I was a kid, I was left-handed, and then I was corrected to use my right hand. So I will write and draw and everything with my right hand, but I will I tend to eat with my left hand, I will throw with my left hand, and I will ride a bike, like if it's one hand, I will ride with my left hand. Yeah, it's like weird little things like that. I don't know if it's useful. It's just
so cool.
it's just a thing, yeah.
That's awesome. What kind of job would you want to have if you weren't an author?
Ooh, if I could do anything.
You could do
If I was
anything.
really talented at
Yes.
anything. Well, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be a fighter pilot. Which I'm so glad for the world that I'm not a fighter pilot, but I really wanted to do that. Like, I still think fighter jets are really cool. Just the idea of it is really cool to me. Although I remember when I told my mom that, my mom was like, you have really bad eyesight and you just can't do it. Like, that's just not, you pursue your other dreams, but don't pursue that one. So I write about characters who are fighter pilots now.
Okay, this one's a little bit silly, but if you were a flavor of ice cream, what would you be? Getting into the silly questions.
Well, my favorite flavor that I just recently had is Cinnamon Toast Crunch. It was delicious, so I will be that.
Awesome. What can readers look forward to next from you?
Well, I am working on the sequel for Warcross. It's a duology, so that's the next one in the book series. Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. Batman Nightwalker is coming out January 2nd. That is my novel about teen Bruce Wayne, and it's coming out through DC and Random House. And that was really fun to write because I got to make my own Batman villain, which is, I mean, I feel like the Bat universe is just defined by its villains. So that is really fun. And I have a historical fantasy standalone coming out in 2019, which is so far away, called The Kingdom of Back, and it's about Mozart's older sister.
Oh wow, that's fun.
Yeah.
How do you come up with the names for your books?
I'm actually really bad at it. A lot of my books were not, like, I didn't come up with the titles. Like Legend was, I called it Republic originally, which is a terrible name. Like, my agent was like, it sounds like a history book, like, what? We need something else, so she came up with Legend. Prodigy was originally Patriot, but, you know, also too historical, so that didn't work. I don't know, I'm not great at titles. It's just kind of like, that's why all my titles sound like they are pulled from the book, you know? So, like, the Young Elites are about the Young Elites, and Warcross is about the game Warcross. You know, there's nothing, like, particularly special about the titles. And the Kingdom of Back is about this, like, historical fact that Mozart and his sister created this magical kingdom for themselves called the Kingdom of Back, that they would imagine themselves in when they were, like, traveling in the carriage for, like, weeks at a time. So that's where that name comes from. Yeah.
Where did you find out about Mozart's backstory and everything?
I read something. I read, like, an article or a biography about Mozart, and I found out that he had an older sister, and I didn't know that. Like, she was 5 years older than him. She was every bit as talented. Like, she was a composer. She composed her own music. She was just as prodigious as him on the piano and on violin and everything. She toured with him. Like, nobody knows that. Like, they played together, you know, throughout their entire childhood for, like, the kings and queens of Europe. But nobody knows because she was a girl. And, you know, at the time, if you were a girl, you could not be a composer. So when she turned 18, she had to stop, whereas her brother went on to become famous. So that was really compelling to me, and I was like, I can't believe I had no idea this person existed. Like, she's not in, like, any of the Mozart movies, you know, nobody talks about her. So, I don't know, it makes me wonder what she could have been.
Yeah, that's
You know?
crazy. Are you going to, do you plan on writing any more historical books in the future, or historically based, or do you prefer to stay more in the kind of near future?
Yeah, I don't know. For now, I only have the one planned. Historical is its own challenge, and I was really intimidated to write it because you have to do a lot of research. So yeah, I think it's, we'll see what happens with it. I mean, I'm still kind of like early on in the process. It was actually a novel that I wrote before I wrote Legend that never sold. So I'm kind of going back now and restructuring it. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so excited to read all these new books.
Thank you.